Welcome back to another exciting episode of Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people where we talk about critical issues in the blindness community. I'm Aaron Richmond. Tonight, like all other episodes, is of course copywritten by me, Aaron Richmond, and Aaron's Opinion. Thank you. You can watch this episode right here on YouTube, where so many of you do, along with listening to us on iTunes or wherever you get a podcast. Okay? You can, of course, comment below on YouTube. You can follow on Facebook and Twitter. Even consider becoming a patron on my Patreon page. We'd appreciate the support. Telephone number for text messages and voicemail contributions, or you just want to talk to me, 1240-681-9869. Aaron's Opinion 6 at gmail.com. We're joined this evening, our guest, John Felton, President, CEO of Virginia Voice. Welcome to Aaron's Opinion. How's it going?
Thank you very much. It's going very well. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. All right. Well, I have some questions. So for one, let's get started by saying, what is Virginia Voice? Tell us all about it.
Virginia Voice is a traditional audio radio reading service. We provide a subcarrier radio channel with decoder boxes that we give free of charge to any vision impaired listeners who care to give us a call and ask for one. We also stream on the web. We also provide a number of other services, including live audio description and other services for the blind and vision impaired in the Central Virginia community.
All right. So, to me, I think our listeners, or at least me, will interpret that as it's kind of a combination between a company that provides some audio services, some radio services, and some services for the visually impaired people who need audio content to listen to. It's kind of a combination of all of that. That's what I understand. Right?
That's absolutely correct. Most of our listeners tend to be a little bit older. Most of our listeners have become blind later in life. Most have macular degeneration at traditionally around 60 to 65 was when our listeners tend to give us a call or get referred to us by an ophthalmologist. Our biggest shows that people tend to like are the ones that you can't get anywhere else, which is the reading of the local newspapers and local periodicals and current events and local content that listeners cannot get anywhere else via the internet JAWS reader or whatnot.
All right. Well, that sounds very good. Yeah, I am also in that part of the country. I'm not in Virginia. I'm more on the Washington, D.C. side. And
Okay.
I remember at one point I had heard about or had been familiar with services similar where you can listen to newspapers like Washington Post and things like that. So this is a critical service. This is a really, really important topic for blind people. Mostly, yeah, you're right, mostly older, but really a lot of age groups can probably benefit in some way from this. The other thing is, well, another question is, so it seems like there's some connection between Virginia Voice and the Virginia Department for the Visually Impaired, or something to that extent. What is that connection?
That's a great question. We are housed in the facility for the Virginia Department for the Blind and Vision Impaired. It's the state agency that provides the hub of services for the blind and vision impaired throughout Virginia. It's really impressive. We, just for the record real quickly, we're not a state agency, although we are on the state agency property. We're our own 501c3, locally supported, some limited government dollars, but 90% we raise on our own. That said, we rent office space from the Virginia Department for the Blind and Vision Impaired, and they have a lot of amazing things going on there. Now, I've only been in this particular business for 7 months now. I come from a broadcasting career with public broadcasting as an executive producer, programmer for over 35 years. So this part of my life is new to me, and I'm still learning a lot. And every day I learn, and I encourage you and your listeners to let me know if I say something that sounds wrong or incorrect, because I am in learning mode. But in any event, at the Virginia Department for the Blind and Vision Impaired facility, and I hope every state has something similar like this, they have, for one, dormitory where they train perhaps someone who's 18, 19 years old, who's blind and wants to transition to an independent life. They have a dormitory where you literally stay for 1 week or more, where you learn how to cook for yourself, learn how to clean, learn how to do everything. They also have services where they will send out folks. You can call them up and say, hey, I just had a baby and she's 6 months old, and now we realize she's blind, and they'll send someone over for what they call early intervention, early learning, to train the parents how to work and adapt and help their blind child. They also do things like folks who are blind can call them up and go, I'm really starting to get some confidence. I want to leave the house. I want to go try to do this. I want to walk more with a cane. So I've talked with these folks. They'll do anything from take somebody who doesn't have a lot of confidence. They've become recently blind and they're not really good with the cane yet, and maybe help them build their confidence and maybe just take baby steps to get to the mailbox, to be independent, to go out and check their own mail at their home, all the way to how to incorporate a JAWS reader on your computer or anything in between. And they literally make house calls. And one of my board members works for the Virginia Department for the Blind and Vision Impaired, Jimmy Morris, and he goes out and he makes these house calls, and he has over 50 folks that he calls on and helps them. So they have a number of things like that. They have a learning library, whether it's physical, the existing older Braille books, Braille Bibles, all sorts of classic books. They're also into digital technology, whether you want to have that sent to your home to check it out in an electronic library, or physically check out an audio tape, whatever it may be. They have all that there. And we find a lot of foot traffic there. And even with the pandemic going on, there's a good number of folks still coming in to get the services. And I'm very proud to be associated ancillary to the Virginia Department for the Blind and Vision Impaired, and all the great services that they provide for the community. And we're pleased to be housed with them.
Excellent. So good. So good. Yeah, many states have departments like that. It sounds like it's a really good program there in Virginia. I'm really pleased to hear that in these times we need programs like that more than ever, and of course always do. But that's really encouraging. I come from a political science background. I happen to be 29 years old, and I'm a teacher by trade. When I'm not podcasting, I teach English. However, I am very interested in broadcasting. I've been, broadcasting my podcast for a year or so, and people have always told me that, people really enjoy my content. A lot of people say, Aaron, you should have studied broadcasting. You should have gotten into that industry. So I'm very interested to learn about the broadcasting industry. I've had a lot of people on this podcast from broadcasting. I've had a couple actors, even. I've had a wide range of people. But what are some of the things you can tell me about your 35 years of experience in broadcasting, and some really interesting or unusual things that you had the privilege of working on?
Okay. My father ran the PBS station in Miami, Florida for 45 years.
Wow.
In 1969, when I was 4 years old, my dad took myself and my two sisters down to the station. You got to remember, back in 1969, there was no home video of anything. And if we wanted to preview something, we had to go see it off of the telescene at the television station. And we watched a pilot program for a live action show, a live action kids show with live action characters and puppetry in a diverse Bronx, New York City neighborhood, which of course turned out to be the pilot for Sesame Street. While I don't remember much about that, I guess I liked it, and my sisters liked it, because we were several of about 25 kids who were really responsible for the pilot episode and the direction that it went in. So that's just my way of saying I've been around this since day one.
That is, and in the art of podcasting and blog, you hear really cool stories. That's really cool that you're someone who had an influence on Sesame Street, a major show of the 20th century for children. I mean, that's really cool. That's really incredible. Yeah, and that must have been really amazing at that time, even though you were small, a little boy. That must have been very, very interesting to like be in a station and to see all of that technology. And it must at that time, the technology they had, I'm sure, was quite advanced for that time period. So how did they run stations back in 1969? That's us young
Oh, I'll
people are
tell you.
confused.
I'll tell you. I mean, when I started my career, I was a master control operator in 1984, and a lot of those technologies from the 70s were still there. I mean, we were still cutting traditional 8 and 16 millimeter film and literally editing, where you're splicing, physically cutting the film and taping it together to edit before these 2-inch quad machines came, which are these big dinosaur tape machines that are the size of a large air conditioning. So television stations ran back then, but the equipment was cumbersome. It was huge. Uh, it wasn't reliable. Equipment would break down. So an engineer in television in the 60s and the 70s and halfway through the 80s was really a difficult job. You were like a scientist, where now all of us understand that we've grown today to where everything is tapeless and everything is IT based, computer based, Mac, IBM compatible, whatever it may be in a traditional sense, just like we're doing here tonight. It's absolutely amazing. And I tell you, if you don't mind me jumping in a little bit about this, and certainly I hope
Not
we'll
at all.
talk a little bit more about the
Go right
audio reading service, but I was privileged to play a small role in the large success of a number of national public television programs, including Liberty or Death, about the great Patrick Henry speech that transpired here at the second convention in Richmond. Here in Richmond, Virginia, it's living history. We literally went to that church where Patrick Henry made that speech and hired actors to recreate the whole thing. And my team won an Emmy for that.
Wow.
We won an Emmy for the Kennedy Half Century, back on the 50th anniversary of Kennedy's assassination. And that's all my way of really saying, if you don't mind me segueing.
Not at all. Go right ahead.
I'm taking that sensibility of an understanding of production and how to put programs together. And I really want to bring that to Virginia Voice. So we are working on a program. It seems so obvious. Why don't we have a program that's hosted by a blind person that's speaking?
Well, you do. As a matter of fact, it looks like you do. So why don't you tell us about that?
I absolutely am. We're working on it right now. We're working on a pilot. It's called How I See It with Dr. Joe Ashley. Dr. Joe Ashley is blind. He became blind at about 25 years of age. He was an employee of the Virginia Department for the Blind and Vision Impaired that I discussed earlier for 20 years. His background is disabled workforce placement. It's really interesting, just to touch on this lightly. His job, and he's retired in that area, but still does consulting business, is he goes to businesses, manufacturers, whatever company it may be, existing or coming into an area, and he meets with them and says, hey, it's not just the right thing to do to hire disabled folks, in particular blind people. Here's a business plan that will prove to you that if you hire blind and vision impaired persons, they're going to be A, more productive, B, they're going to be more loyal, C, they're going to use less sick time, and 4, they're going to be more appreciative, and you're going to make out from this. So this business plan that he has, he's been wildly successful with it here in Richmond and Virginia, and he's taking it all over the country little by little right now in his retirement. But anyway, he is hilarious. He's a funny guy. He still travels. He talks about people like me as the sighted disabled. Like sometimes, like he'll bump into a chair and I'm like, oh, you okay? And he goes, I'm just fine. I can't see the chair. It's okay. It's okay. So he has a little fun with me because I'm not as accustomed to being around blind persons, but I'm getting a lot better at it. So let me cut to the chase here, Aaron, and tell you what this show is going to be about. We're going to cover advocacy issues as they relate to the blind and vision impaired in the state of Virginia. What legislative issues are there? Are there issues with disability or other services, maybe with the Virginia Department of Blind and Vision Impaired, where folks can talk about it, complain about it, try to help advocate? We're going to talk about technology. We're going to have a technology segment that talks about what new available technologies are out there, or even advice or things like that. We're going to talk about entertainment opportunities for the blind. We're even going to talk about travel, and we're going to talk about anything that's of interest to the blind and vision impaired. And we're going to work in audience interaction to the show. I haven't quite worked that out yet, but we're certainly going to work on it. So I'm really excited about that. And I want to make Virginia Voice have programs that are water cooler type programs, must listen to programs for our audience, because quite honestly, there is that existential question out there, Aaron, is with a traditional linear radio reading service, computers, JAWS readers, if we don't also offer the type of content that they can't get from a screen reader, if we don't provide the water cooler destination for these conversations and for these issues in the community, they're going to go elsewhere. So that's what we know that we have to do to continue to be a viable service to the community for another 40 years.
Sounds amazing.
That was a lot. Sorry about that.
And I never fault a guest that can talk. That's the type of guest I want on this show. People that love to talk. I'm never going to say stop talking. If anything, I'm sitting here with my microphone in my mind thinking, talk, please talk.
I can keep talking.
That's awesome. This is exactly the reason why I brought you on the show, because this is basically very, very, very similar to some of the reasons why I started Aaron's Opinion. In some similarity. I felt that there were not enough podcasts for blind people where people could just walk up to the podcaster and say, hey, can I come onto your podcast today to talk about Virginia Voice? I never really felt that there was that openness, and I strive to be and hope that I am,
right,
the most open podcaster on all of iTunes. Someone who's willing to have guests come and talk about these issues, mostly issues about blindness, but really any. So, I don't know. Maybe, just of course, maybe this show that you're planning, maybe they can have an episode with a podcaster or something like that. You never
Absolutely.
know.
And you know what I would like to do, if you don't mind me doing that, Aaron? I'd like to turn this around for a minute and acknowledge, of course, to your audience again, that I've been in this world for 7 months. I don't know a lot at all. I'll probably never know a lot unless I become blind. I don't want to ever act like, no matter how long I do this, that I understand what it's like for a blind vision impaired person.
You speak very, you express that very well. I appreciate the way you express that. That's very, very,
Right.
very, very wise of you. Thank you for that. It's so good. Yeah.
And that's true. I never want to say I know how someone feels, because I don't. I can only try to. But with that said, I mean, Aaron, look at yourself. You're amazing. Look at you're doing here. You've got this podcast. You're a teacher. You've talked with so many people. This is an opportunity, hopefully, for you to help me. And you're talking right now with a guy who's been in this for 7 months, and he's trying to develop a series that's macro for the community, for the blind community in my area. If there's any issues you or your listeners can think of, or things that would be great for this show, or things that you feel that are missing from media in your life relative to your geography, I would love to hear that from you, your listeners, now, later, whenever.
Yeah, well, let's go with the now. So, for one, my creative idea was that you actually, if you want, if you're open to it, you can of course include me in one of these episodes in some sort of a creative way, where, I don't know, during the episode, this person, on the show, like, somehow calls into my podcast or kind of creates some sort of a thing to that effect. I think that would be, well, actually, I think, because I'm the one who's saying it, but for me, I would be I would be tremendously honored to know that I helped someone else. We have a saying here at Aaron's Opinion that I came up with: help one person today, help a million tomorrow. And I believe it 1,000%. If I can only help you, you might be able to help a million others. And that's why it's worth it to me. That's why this is worth doing. But yeah, there are several, national issues that I see that I would like to educate you on and make you aware of.
Okay.
I was a guide dog user for many years of my life. Um, I had a guide dog for 13 years. And
Wow.
one of the issues that I see in the community all over the country is we're having a lot of problems, and not so much anymore because of the pandemic health situation. We're having a lot of issues with people using their pet dogs as untrained guide dogs.
I hear you.
Um, and I based on your reaction, it seems like you're aware of why that might be a problem and why I might be not agreeing with that.
Uh, I am totally aware of the problem, but please
Oh,
tell me
okay.
more.
Well, 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 if you're totally aware, if you're totally
Well,
aware, there's not much
yeah,
more to be aware.
yeah. So,
Uh,
so what's happening to you is what's happening to you like, you need the service dog for a legitimate issue, and then someone who says that their toenail hurts needs a teddy a bulldog to come with them on the plane so they don't have anxiety over their toenail. I mean, obviously I'm exaggerating,
yeah,
but the
that's
excessive
that's
use
that's magnificent. You nailed it.
of service dogs is making it's precluding the ability for you who really needs it to have it. I get that.
We need to get you on this podcast more often because you understand these issues perfectly. It's exactly what I've been see. Nobody listens to me. Maybe they'll listen to you if you keep saying this. That's exactly the problem. It's exactly the
I'll stand
problem.
behind you. I'll be your Ed McMahon.
You'll be my what?
Your Ed McMahon. I'm showing how old I am.
Okay, I
On,
think it was just visible. Okay,
on the Johnny Carson show, Ed McMahon used to sit by him and go, "Yes, Johnny, you're right." I would be your
okay.
Ed McMahon.
Okay, we can have an Ed McMahon if you want one. All right, we can arrange that. The other, I mean, that for me is if there was one issue that I
Mm-hmm.
would fix, it's that
Okay.
one. Because I'm a huge animal lover. I'm a huge dog lover. I love all sorts of creatures. I love parrots and snakes, and I'm a bit of a character. I'm a persona to say the very least.
Okay.
But I take animal rights and the way that we treat animals very, very extremely seriously. And my opinion is in my opinion, it's animal abuse to make a pet dog that was not properly trained work as a service dog. It's not. I don't agree. So I want that to stop, and I think it's a matter of basically changing the federal laws. Now, exactly what needs to change, I have no idea, but I do know that what's happening right now, or what I have seen, is not suitable for me, and so that's my stance on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um, but there's been a lot of things like that, you know. There have also been a lot of discrimination issues in the blindness community. Well, of course, everybody, in America faces discrimination. That's how people are. But blind people face a lot of it, especially, as you mentioned before, in the workplace, in a workplace setting. The other places of discrimination that are very, very dangerous are Ubers and taxi cab services. And this has been a very serious problem when I had a guide dog, dealing with drivers, a few drivers. By the way, the vast majority of Uber drivers are perfect and never gave me a problem. But it only takes one bad apple to ruin the
Okay.
bushel. So I've had a couple issues with drivers who, are people who are not informed and not aware of the way that we treat people with disabilities in this country. Maybe they're from overseas.
Okay.
So it's a tremendously serious issue for blind people's safety. Obviously for men, for women, for young people. So discrimination by Uber drivers and getting from point A to B safely. That's a tremendous. That would be a tremendous issue to work on. And then the third issue that I'm seeing a lot of. I mean, there's just so many different facets, but I believe strongly that all blind people need to be voting and need to be participating, at their local, at their state, and at the national level when it comes to politics, wherever you might fall, left or right, up, down, hot, cold. I think it really, the reason why I say that all blind people need to vote is because all blind people need to show the country that we matter, we're there, and we care. And that's a tremendously important issue. Where I see so many blind people not voting, and then They complain
Okay.
to me about, their leader. I say, well, did you vote? Well, no. So,
Okay.
there's that one. I think that all blind people should be, I've noticed that there's a lot of issues in the community lately around self-esteem, and that more people should be, more motivated. I understand right now that everybody's kind of feeling, ugh, just mentally, self-esteem wise, not feeling so good right now.
Right.
But come the spring, come next year, this coming year, 21 as we are now, I hope that once, people start getting better, maybe get vaccinated, once things start to calm down, I want to see things start to recover again. So those are some of the most pivotal issues that I feel that you should, know more about, and be aware of in the community. And these are national things that occur, and I think that they would be really interesting topics to dig into, with your host that you're working with on your show, and seeing what they say about all of that.
Can when you talk about discrimination, that's an
Sure.
issue I ask folks in the blind community about often, and I've asked that question in particular to Dr. Ashley, given he's a workforce specialist for the blind. And I go, is there discrimination? And I was thinking that, about the traditional types of discriminations that you describe. And he said, oh, sure, John, there's a lot of that. He goes, but there's also discrimination amongst at times themselves, where they're discriminating against themselves in a way because of, and as you said moments ago, self-esteem. So he chooses to frame that in discrimination, where there's so many people he's helping and he's building their confidence and saying, you have this background, you have this education, you can do C, D, and E and not just A and B. And a lot of times they don't have the confidence to take that step to move forward. And I wanted to ask you, from your experience, is that something that you come across often, or is that an anomaly?
C, both A and B are correct. I come across it
Okay.
often, and I think it depends on the situation. Yeah, I've noticed, for example, let me just phrase it this way. The group that you posted in on Facebook, that blind, visually impaired support group community on Facebook,
Right.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
if you scroll through that thing, don't scroll through it longer than 10 to 15 minutes, because after 10 to 15 minutes, you'll see so much negativity, and
Mm-hmm.
so much of this, and
Right.
that person, your host is could not be more correct. It's exactly what it is. It's self-discrimination, and I could not agree more. Either way, whether you're being discriminated against or you have low self-esteem, these are issues that blind people need to start working on today, so that when we get to the end of the crisis and start to, you know, get back into the swing of things, we can actually start doing, fixing these issues. If there's ever a time to fix things and to think about what we need to change and fix, it might be right now. So, that's kind of, where I stand on that. But you're absolutely right. It goes both, it's wrong and it goes both ways. But I see problems in both directions either way. Yes.
Wow. Well, definitely, what's been so fascinating is, and I'm still in the absorbing everything mode. And um, with the pandemic, we're trying to get our show launched, and this is actually going to go to a point. Um, our host cannot come see us right now. He's got an autoimmune issue, and he's got to do everything at
Oh
home.
gosh.
And this is a perfect opportunity, because we want him to be independent, to be able to do what you're doing, Aaron. You're setting up your own Zoom calls. You're doing everything as anybody would, and it seems as normal and easy as peasy for you. Well, with Dr. Ashley, we're literally scheduling Zoom calls with him and showing him and grabbing a hold of his browser and showing him how to do it. It's so fascinating to watch him go through the JAWS reader, tabbing through, and we've got him so close to the point where he's setting up the Zoom meetings, he's setting up the interviews. We've got to record it on Dropbox because we need multi-track. We don't want to have it pre-mixed and not be able to mix it out. But I'm getting into too much detail here.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we're so close, and I'm just listening to him and watching him do this, and we're in awe of Dr. Ashley, and he doesn't know that. And one day, I'm inviting you right now to be on the series at some point, and who knows, you might have some things that you might be able to help him with
I would be,
with your experience.
that would be for me, that would make it all worthwhile. Thank from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. I accept it and thank you so much. For me to be as a podcaster to be able to be on a show. I mean
Mm-hmm.
that is Phyllis, on one hand a dream come true, but moreover a way for me to truly be helpful to someone else like this Dr. Ashley, who I've never heard of, but
Yeah,
now that we know of him, it sounds like he should be a guest on Aaron's Opinion.
I
Um,
think he would probably do it. But let me just really interject really quickly.
sure.
The conversation we're having is great because I'm the guy that doesn't know anything. You're the guy that knows it. You're explaining it to me. I'm absorbing it. Your listeners are hearing about it. But when you and Dr. Ashley start talking, you're going to be on the same wavelength. And that's the biggest part about this organization's been around for 40 years. They've never had a blind host for a show. And it's like, duh, that's what we should be doing. So this is a really big deal for this organization. And I'm thank you very much for agreeing to be a part of it by being a guest on an episode of the show.
My pleasure. So, okay, so I'm trying to picture it in my mind though. Um, so like, how do I even? Yeah, you can tell I don't come from a broadcasting background because I don't even have the
It's
vocab
okay.
to ask. I don't even have the vocabulary to ask the question.
You're fine.
It sounds kind of silly when I phrase it, but like what is this show going to look like? Like, is Dr. Ashley guy just pops up on the screen, starts talking, or are we doing like a intro song, or what? Like, how is it scripted?
We're 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 going to record segments. We're probably going to have 3, maybe 4 interviews per episode, and we're going to record all the interviews. And then I'm going to have one of my sound geeks at Virginia Voice. We're going to create a theme song, bumpers. We're going to have transitions. I want to make it really tight because I want to try to distribute this into the world of podcasting that you're experienced with. Matter of fact, I noticed all the different podcast locations your show is delivered on. And keep in mind, podcasting and distribution on podcasts is something I don't know anything about. I can get a public broadcasting TV show on 300 PBS stations in 2 weeks. So I'm trying to figure this all out again in this new world here. So we want a very tight podcast. We want to try to make it themed. Like I could see where we might have an issue on technology and the interview for you, and we would certainly take suggestions from you what we might want to talk about. But we would like ask you about your experiences in podcasting, getting it out there, how your shows work, and giving a chance to promote your show and tell us the location where our listeners can secure it. But also a discussion about the technology and how you use it, and you're way ahead of Dr. Joe. So you two might end up having, for example, a discussion where you're talking about how to use the technology, and the listener's sitting there saying, "Oh, I didn't know I could record it and do it this way," or whatever it may be that I don't fully understand.
Wonderful. So basically, it's like you're using your knowledge from your work and uh, your network, basically at your networking through PBS and through other people in the industry, to create a TV show-ish thing that
Right,
combines a TV show-ish thing with a
right.
podcast-ish thing at the same time.
And you know something, Aaron, I don't know if I'm trying to overproduce this thing. There is such a concept, and that's what I may be doing here. I may find I've overproduced it with
Huh.
just too busy. So I'm going to figure this out though.
No, not at all. Not at all. I can't fathom in this day and age anything being overproduced. If anything, no, if anything, we need to overshoot this because we need to really make a good impression. We really need to kind of get caught up when this thing air. We need to get people a little bit more motivated. So if we can overproduce a little bit,
Right.
that would be good. And then then the other facet of podcasting is sometimes, and I don't do it. You heard I gave the number. where people can call and leave and reach out to me, like kind of like an office phone. Which, by the way, that is a Google number, so don't worry
Okay.
about that. But at any rate, so is during this show, are they gonna like? Is it going to turn into like a talk show thing where people can like call in or ask questions, or is it going to be more scripted? I mean, how are you?
We're going to let Dr. Joe do the interviews that he wants. I mean, the one thing, I would love to do, Aaron, but it's not going to be possible, is to have a live show. But let me ask you right now, are we live right now, or are we just recording and your listeners right now are listening to us on delay?
No, this is pre-recorded. So this is a recording, okay. And yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to encourage the listeners, the same thing that you're doing. We're going to be record, delay, broadcast, and we're going to find ways to integrate by saying submit your questions. A listener can call us. Any way that they can communicate with us, we'll certainly accept. They may have a question for the next show. It may be a follow-up. They may have something to say, hey, that episode when you said this and this about that, you guys were wrong, and blah, blah, blah. So I hope it becomes that kind of show where they want a follow-up question. They want to complain about something. Remember, complaining about things on a talk show is not necessarily a bad thing. And we wouldn't, deliberately create any kind of, dissension on the show, but we want to get people talking, and there are things that I know that can be, for lack of a better term, controversial in the vision impaired community, and how to proceed, go forward, and do things. So we want that kind of debate there. One of those debates I've seen out there is the debate about the Social Security disability, and taking it and becoming too used to it. I remember Dr. Joe telling me when he got out of college and he became ultimately legally blind, he didn't want to take that money for a number of reasons, psychologically to him. And so whatever the issues may be, I hope we get into that kind of back and forth. I hope, but the feedback is going to come from a number of different ways, and I'm not sure how we're going to do all that yet with the disabled blind community in terms of how they can communicate with us.
Right. Sure. Well, I am more than open to all of these different debates. More than open to being, able to speak about them in an informed and entertaining way. And I think this is what society really needs. But it's pretty hard to get people to call in.
Right.
So I've found that too. I mean, I give an email. I mean, I give a phone number. I mean, I always wonder, am I really that intimidating? Because like nobody emails, nobody calls. I got one person did email in, and he was a guest on an episode a couple days ago that I recorded. But it's the audience participation. You guys are going to have to, really think about that, because if I thought about it for myself, I wouldn't be able to record, because it's to a point where I can just basically say, if you guys want to call, but you won't. So, but anyway, eventually someone does call, and that's very, very interesting. And as far as live shows go, I mean, I know people on my podcast team here at Aaron's Opinion who are, oh yeah. I mean, I know, yeah, I do know a person. Yeah, I know exactly who you should talk to.
Right. It's a different ball game when it's live.
No, but I do know. I interviewed. It's a bit of a long story. I interviewed someone on the other side of the country. She has a team staff that works for her. I do know exactly who you should contact if you want to learn about live streams. However, I find that with live streams, the audience kind of dazes out and worries about their toenail and their pet that should be a guide dog. They kind of zone out.
That should be a guide dog.
They kind of zone out, and I find that my and it's only my opinion, is that you kind of get more meat and potatoes. You kind of get more of a meal this way with the pre-recorded version.
You do. Absolutely.
Unless you are someone who has like an unlimited followers, or unless there's some facet that makes it more valuable. Yeah, if the show is more valuable live than recorded, then it should be live. But I have found in podcasting that all the valuable ones, this is only my opinion, are the ones that are recorded. But it does kind of
Right.
depend on the setting. Yeah.
But with
Mm-hmm.
our format where we want to have 3 or 4 guests, this is where I was commenting on possibly being overproduced. We want 3 or 4 guests, transition, bumps, information tidbits, music. I mean, if I don't watch out, this thing could be so busy, it could be bad. And
Well,
I'm
no, it
serious
will
that
never.
problem overproduced exists.
Oh no,
As
you know
far as
what?
it
Never,
sounds.
never fear, never fear, never fear, because number one, Aaron's opinion is here to help, and number two,
I appreciate
if
it.
if I find that sometimes in life, as a blind person, I have to overproduce. So I'd rather you guys have more. I'd rather you have more meat and more material than you actually need. If you have more than
Right.
you need, then you have what you need.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, three to four guests. Okay, I've been on those panels before. I'll tell you, one of the things that happens that you have to be aware of with blind people, and this is something that is not
Right.
necessarily obvious to a sighted person. When a group of blind people are on a Zoom call, we miss all of those social cues about who's supposed to be talking. So if you're going to
Right.
record 3 or 4 guests, you can absolutely do it, but that will require a lot more editing and a lot more moving stuff around for sure, because people interrupt either on purpose but usually accidentally, and that's the significant thing that I noticed with group calls like that. Yeah.
So what I mean when I say, and I know we haven't clearly had this discussion offline, and we're
Mm-hmm.
we're live together here right now, is I'm going to have 3 to 4 segments with 3 to 4 different guests being recorded all at different times. So I'm
What do you,
laughing because I
well, what do
think
you,
I may
okay,
be
with that,
biting
so
off a
that
little bit more than I need to.
3 to 4, well, 3 to 4 being recorded, well,
I'm
that
talking
doesn't
about
make
having
sense.
3 to 4 different guests, and each interview is one-on-one like this. Now,
Oh
for our
yeah.
technology segment, we go to, Aaron Richmond. And after that segment's
Oh,
done,
okay,
okay,
okay, okay, okay.
earlier yesterday, I had a chance to talk to John Smith over at da 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 da. So,
Okay,
so
yeah,
that
no,
keeps
that's
me moving.
totally fine. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to get panels of guests together, record the interviews separately, then paste it all
Right.
together. That's fine.
Correct. Yes, sir.
That's
Yeah.
perfect. That's perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
that should work. What can possibly go wrong? Nothing. Trust me.
Everything, absolutely everything. This is broadcasting. I've seen it all,
I
and it's fine. I look forward to it. That's what
I
makes
look
this
forward
fun.
to it. And
This
you
is
know
a
what?
challenge. This is a real challenge.
And that's what I love about being a podcaster is I don't edit my work. I just have a natural conversation where I just produce
Right.
a really fun video, and it's why it's very entertaining for me, because it's not perfect. The imperfections are what makes it beautiful and what makes it, worth the listen, I think. Yeah. Cool. Cool. Okay. Well, what are some other huge questions you want to ask me? I mean, really, nothing can offend me, and I really
You
want you to
know,
ask all your questions.
when you look at, I want to talk about, get your opinion about the existential nature of reading services.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a few services like Virginia Voice have, especially with the pandemic. My company is in a really good position. The folks before me were great stewards of the resources and fundraising, and we have a modest little investment that keeps us going if we get into some lean times. So the radio services in Roanoke and in Southwest Virginia have kind of gone on hiatus because of the pandemic. So we're actually pretty much statewide in Virginia running our service through their areas as well. And I wonder if they're going to come back. And for example, if they don't, then we'll certainly take over and provide the service. So, when I look at what we do, and I ask you, the JAWS reader, in my experience, little experience there is come on real strong in the last 5 to 10 years. And, most of my listeners are older. They weren't necessarily computer savvy. When they were younger, they got macular degeneration in their 60s or 70s, then they need the radio box from us. But what I'm worried about, and this would be great for the vision impaired folks, are the folks who are going to come up and get into that 60 and 70-year age that may unfortunately get an eye affliction like macular degeneration and need something. Are they still going to need a traditional reader of the Richmond Times-Dispatch from Virginia Voice, or in 5 to 10 years, are they going to be adept at using a screen reader at an older age, where folks who are 70 years old right now, pretty much most of them can't. That's why they need it. So the existential question is, how long can I keep doing this? I have to have vision as a CEO for this company and where we're going to go. And I feel like if we just keep going with this linear audio, radio, reading traditional services that's been around for 50 years, that there's an end life for Virginia Voice. So my concern is how do I adapt the company, make us technology savvy, and don't make us obsolete because folks can get everything that they need through other technology. So I don't know where to begin with that. I'm throwing that out on you. That's a tough one, I'm sure.
The answer is that the one thing that I have noticed this with one of my relatives, and everybody has a relative like this mostly, or this is extremely common, where people become blind at a very old age. And one of the factors that oftentimes happens is that they actually deny the blindness. They actually insist that they are not blind. It might sound strange to you, but it is quite, it is a part of the grieving process. There's a whole psychology behind it. So it's kind of tricky because if they're in their 70s, they really, for the most part, would probably never really be, I mean, in the end, it would depend on the individual, but for the most part, you would have to figure out what the vast majority of your customers need. I mean, it would be kind of tricky. I would just do some sort of a survey, or I would try to get that information to see what they want, what services that you need to be providing, or what products, to offer. Surveys are the best way to do it. However, the customers that you're serving, especially the oldest ones, are not going to necessarily admit to you that they actually need the service. So this is where it gets really complicated. You have to identify who the customers are discreetly, and then you have to somehow find a means of approaching them in such a way that they are then motivated enough to use your product without feeling intimidated because it's technology. So I'm only 29, I don't know how to do that. It is very frustrating for younger family members when they deal with older relatives who are blind and deny it, but yet I digress.
Wow.
But yet I digress. That is
interesting.
So what I would do is, I would sit down with maybe, go over to that department and sit down with maybe one of their counselors, someone who has experience working with the elderly community, and ask them those questions and see if they can create a roadmap for you to be able to get that done. But that will be, as far as the providing these services to the community, the Virginia Voice side, having nothing to do with the TV show bit. But the Virginia Voice side, the hardest thing would be just simply identifying customers and figuring out what the needs are. That's a project all on its own. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm digging into this world. I'm telling you, one of the most fascinating things I've ever been a part of is these JAWS readers with these blind folks who are literally ripping through it at such a speed to cut through chapter one, chapter two. And I can't even follow orally, mentally what's going on, but they know where they are there. So this is the part of me where I may say something stupid. I've only been doing this for 7 months, but I feel like the blind people with the JAWS readers have accentuated other senses that they have to be stronger with their lack of eyesight, that I can't follow them with my traditional hearing, what they're listening to, but they can.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, and I'm more of an Apple guy, so I don't use
You're
JAWS.
An Apple guy. So JAWS is a Microsoft product. That's right.
Well, JAWS, I believe is a product of, I believe it's actually produced by Humanware, but I could be wrong. So you in the audience out there, correct me. I might have made that mistake. I'm pretty sure JAWS. No, misspoke. Now I'm retracing my steps. I think JAWS is I think Jaws is made by a company for Freedom
There
Scientific.
it is.
That's what it's
There it
called.
is.
That's what it's called.
Right.
My mistake. Yes, Freedom Scientific. Um, and I'm one of these people who doesn't really like playing around with technology, so I was never really able to get Jaws. I was never really able to maximize the skills at the right age. Um,
Okay.
so for me, like Apple is just my go-to. It's just something that I'm able to use with, extreme ease with no stress. Apple is, in my opinion, Apple is as good as it gets. But then again, you talk to, this other person, they'll tell you, no, Jaws is where it's at. So it's in the end in the community, it's a matter of preference, but in the end, it depends on which one you're able to use. It all does.
Right.
It's all very similar though. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Um, I've also heard things that they're like Dr. Ashley, who's, I keep referencing him, not because I'm trying to promote my forthcoming show. Of course I am, but he's my baseline for a lot of interaction about things like this. He says he's never learned to read Braille. He'll never learn to read Braille. He doesn't want to deal with it.
That doesn't surprise me.
And he has friends that in the blind community that admonish him for that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It doesn't surprise me. A lot of blind people have an opinion about Braille. They think it's old-fashioned or it's not needed. And I think in some cases, I think in a lot of cases, it is important. But I think we also need to embrace technology in an appropriate way too. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, there's a lot of things going on in Virginia Voice. And one of the things I didn't get a chance to mention, if I have a few more minutes, is I wanted to talk about our live audio description program. I'm sure a number of your listeners have heard about this. I mentioned it earlier, but just alluding to it, is what we've been doing is we've been bringing theater to life for those who are blind and vision impaired. We were doing this all the way up till February of last year before the pandemic hit. We're gearing up to do it again, is where we literally go to, we have special shows for local theater where it'll be Virginia Voice Night, and we'll have 30 of our guests there, and we have wireless headsets, and we have a live audio describer, one of my board members, who happens to be an actress and knows all these performances, and she provides the descriptive video type of thing in between the dialogue of the play so folks can follow along. But what I find really fascinating, and I wonder if you've heard of this or have partaken in any of this in your experiences, at most of these shows beforehand, the actors are great. They're very open people traditionally. And they allow our guests to go, for those who want to go backstage before the performance and talk with the actors. And then our guests learn their voices and what role they have, so they'll know, okay, that's Ophelia, that's who that may be, and so on and so forth. And if they're wearing exotic costumes, they'll even let them touch them. We have some great pictures on our website of this one actress who's got this outfit on with this big horn thing on her head, and the actor's touching it and literally mapping out in his or her mind what that costume may mentally look like. So when they take that experience back to the theater seats with the live audio description headphones, they literally have brought theater back to life for them. And the experience is just to watch that and watch how much they enjoy that is worth everything I do for this organization. And that's an area we really want to build up upon, and we're hoping to get live theater back in this country, hopefully as early as this summer. So we're excited about that.
I support it. Yeah, I had an episode on a couple months back with a guy on the other side of the country, and he records a podcast that does just that, where it's a theater podcast where he knows all the actors in California. That's helpful. And he basically encouraged them to record these scripts, and they produced these like really good horror content. And he talked to me about, well, acting in the whole horror industry and how that can work into radio and stuff like that. So that's really good that you're doing that. That is a really, really productive idea for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We think that that's our future, to do more of that. We're also taking that same live audio describer type of concept, and it's not a new concept, but we're taking it to we've actually been hired by the local museum to produce live audio description for a particular exhibit and things like that.
Cool.
So I think there's endless opportunities in that particular area where you're integrating the technology and bringing all the museums and theaters to life.
So good. Yeah, that's absolutely the right direction. That's where I want to see things go. That's the activity that I support. That's absolutely that's absolutely the right. It's really sending the right message to society. Never mind about helping blind people, but as far as society goes, that's really sending the right message
Right.
of success and inclusion and being artistic and creative. I mean, that is so good. Yeah. Hmm.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah. What other questions do you have?
Well, I just wanted to certainly thank you for being here tonight. I've enjoyed having what I would call like a candid conversation with your audience. Hopefully, taking this in and listening, and hopefully, I haven't made too much of a fool of myself. But I've learned a lot tonight. Every experience I have every day with this industry, I learned something new, and I've taken away about 5 or 6 big things from you here. You've been very helpful. Can I just wanted to ask you, and this may be a question where you go, oh, come on, John, you've just put me on the spot. Is what do sighted people do to blind persons or to you that drive you all the most crazy about the sighted community relative to interacting with you? What do we do that's so annoying? I want to know. I know there's got to be a lot of things.
Well, when I'm not teaching or podcasting, I'm very antisocial and unfriendly. So basically anything. But apart
I'm antisocial and unfriendly. That was a good answer. All the above. D.
But I love being sarcastic. I really love entertaining people and helping you to have a better day. Like just doing the thing that frustrates me the most about you sighted people out there is exactly the opposite of what you did. The thing that frustrates me the most is when sighted people are rude and ignorant and are not ready to learn with me. But you are the opposite of everything of that. You're incredibly kind, you're incredibly informed, and you're very willing to learn with me and to allow me to help you, and I'm going to let you help me. And it's just so good to meet people who are so willing to do the right thing. So I only spend my energy on the people like you who are willing to do the right thing and that I'm sure are going to do the right thing. So to all you other people out there,
Right.
really, try to be informed. Listen to this podcast. Hey, if you have questions, email them. aaronsopinion6@gmail.com. 1240-681-9869. I'm not going to say anything mean to you, even if you say something ignorant or rude. I mean,
I have to try harder.
Yeah. I mean, well, then again, I mean, I think I just lied. I mean, if you say something rude enough, I might say something pretty fancy back. But you know what? Mostly when people reach out to me, it's because they're coming from a place of wisdom and knowledge, and that they actually want to help. So yeah, you'd find as you continue to put together your plans, you'll find that more and more people are actually the people that contact you are going to be more of the knowledgeable type to begin with. For the most part, you get some you get some trolls and some silly stuff along the way. But that's why
I'm okay with trolls.
Oh, okay, good. I know a couple. I'll make sure to pass them to you. But
trolls are okay because you can communicate with them and see what bothers them.
Right. It's a very
good opportunity.
Yeah, that's a very good. It's a very wise thing. If someone is, in other words, if someone's misbehaving, it's because something's wrong with them, not because something's right with us. Right.
Right.
But anyway,
Maybe.
I tremendously thank you for most of all for coming on my podcast. Second of all, for the opportunity to help Virginia Voice. For the record, guys, no, I didn't know I would be offered a thing like that. You guys are saying, "Oh, you planned this?" No, actually, I didn't plan any of it. I just showed up. Anyway, I would have loved to ask. Do you have any questions that really make me sweat and really see if I'm worth my salt? But you asked it, so I don't have to ask that. And just thanks so much. We'll, of course, be in touch. As I say on this podcast, I wish you the very best of health. I wish the world very best of health. Take care, everybody. Stay positive, stay productive. And as we say here at Aaron's Opinion, help one person today, help 1 million people tomorrow.